No, he's here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Please, Mujibhai, do join us here. And of course, we welcome Dr. Sadaf Jaffer, who is with us, very much in spirit as well as visually. So welcome everyone to this session from our wonderful panelists. So Sadaf, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. I'm Sadaf Jaffer, and as you heard, I'm an assemblywoman representing the 16th District in New Jersey's General Assembly. And I'm also a researcher and lecturer in South Asian Studies at Princeton University. The topic of discussion for this evening is of great interest to me, and I think to everyone in the audience and everyone in our society as we try to figure out how to move forward in a positive way when there's
Mujib Kazi, he's got so many initials, the boards that he serves, it's quite a mouthful to say President of NTIC, Chairman of TCCF, but what is most important is that he is an activist. In fact, President of Pakistan, Dr. Arif Alvi, awarded Mujib the Ambassador of Peace Award. Congratulations for that. In recognition of his contribution to building bridges, promoting harmony amongst multi-faiths in the US and around the world. So with that said, welcome to the panel, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Walti, and thank you, the Ekman Center, for hosting us tonight, and thank you all for making the time out. I would like to start with saying this. Just imagine for a second that a city to the size of Dallas-Fort Worth is taken over by over 1 million boots of your own army, and 10 million people have been put on a state of hostage. Power has been shut down, and the media has been clamped down. What would be the state of affairs of your life? I'm talking about a state. When we talk about the voices of the community of marginalized, I'm going to talk about the people of Kashmir who were voiceless people. I think it would not be fair if I would stop calling the name out those who are deliberately committing the oppression on those innocent people. One of the scholars of Sufism noted that if a person of alcoholic habit comes to me and tells me that I'm not intoxicated, I would probably believe him. But if a person comes to me with the power in his hand and tells me I'm not intoxicated, I would certainly not believe him. That is the problem. Once we are in opposition, once we are activists, when we are claiming the proponent of democracy, unfortunately, once the power is handed over to us, we turn the other side. So when I talk about the people who are voiceless in Kashmir, they have been suffering for about 75 years now. But the tide turned on August 5th of 2019, when 1 million boots taken over 10 million people. A young daughter, and this is the story that was testimony in the UNO, a young daughter who was using the torch from her phone to study for her next exam. A soldier spotted him from the window that she has the light turned on at night. They all barged in, picked up all the men and the father. Until today, they have not been able to recover their parents. There are few known ways that we can protest and raise our voices. One of them is to protest. How can they protest? When they are out protesting, they are blinded off with pellet guns, guns that is used to hunt. Now, there are two purposes behind that. One of them is that they spot them who was out there protesting. And second one is so they can pick them up and take them to the incarceration camps. And this is not all happening by virtue of haphazardness. It is happening by design. You know why? Because it has been in the works for the last 75 years. The unfortunately beautiful country of India, beautiful people of India, they have been taken hostage by this regime that is driven by the offshoot of German Nazi RSS. What they are doing is they are trying to promote this ideology of supremacy, and even that is coming to our own country, in USA. If you look at the Dr. Andre, she's one of the academicians at the University of Massachusetts. She has to keep the guards with her, even delivering a lecture inside of the US. Dr. Trishke is doing nothing but doing research on RSS. So that is penetrating into our own society. So the second thing is that you can protest by using journalism and writing columns and going out and using the usage of social media. Internet has been clamped down. For the last several decades, that has been something that has revolutionized the world. If the people of Marginalized go out and post their posts on the social media, even today, 70 times, just in 2022, 70 times, internet was shut down. 4G is not available. Wherever it is periodically available, it is spotty. So the social media is clamped down, but there is a history behind that. Why is it happening? It is happening because the dispute of Kashmir needs to be resolved, not only between India and Pakistan. It has to be resolved between India, Pakistan, and the people of Kashmir, who are the rightful owner of the state of Kashmir. India by force, Pakistan by force, China by force, taken over Pakistan 37%, India 43%, the rest of it with China. Unless and until this issue is resolved, all of us, including every one of us sitting here in this room, is vulnerable because all these three states are nuclear powers and Kashmir is a flashpoint. I know why you're walking.
The marginalization, again, whether it's the people of Kashmir, whether it's the Rohingyas, be it the Uyghurs, and many Palestinians, many in persecution. And amongst the voices that need to be raised in civil society, besides the government, besides other institutions, is one of media. And I'd like to invite our next panelist, Ms. Rifat Malik. She is the editor-in-chief of the groundbreaking new national newspaper, The American Muslim Today, a dynamic and inclusive non-profit platform that celebrates diversity and the immense contribution of Muslims in the West. And she's also a freelance writer for the Dallas Morning News and hosts a political show on the local FM station. Before I invite Ms. Rifat Malik, I used to live here.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for coming and thank you for inviting me to speak. It's an honor. I wanted to focus on the role of the media, especially the mainstream media, in manufacturing perceptions of minority communities and how they can impact their rights. In particular, I wanted to look at the demographic that my publication, American Muslim Today, targets, and that's 30 million Muslims living in the US and other Western countries. As a Muslim woman born in the UK and who's lived in the US for nearly 20 years, I've seen interesting parallels in how the media treats Muslims and Islam on both sides of the pond, and how two evolved and influential Western democracies depict this faith group. A picture emerges of two extreme polarized narratives. Muslims are seen as either aggressors, purveyors of terrorism, violence, and misogyny, or they are targets of aggression stemming from Islamophobia and discrimination. With very little representation in between, the cumulative effect is that Muslims are either villains or victims. They have no real agency, and the realities of their everyday lives are invisible, as is the contribution that they make in all aspects of public and community life. We know from successive studies and surveys by the likes of Pew and ISPU that these reductive and harmful tropes feed into the mindset of the wider community. So for instance, in 2017, when President Trump took office, about half of American Muslim adults said they had personally experienced religious discrimination, with studies showing Muslim women facing the brunt of this bigotry, and other research showed that Islam was considered to be a religion that encourages violence compared to other faiths. Despite the rise in anti-Muslim bias, it turns out that over 50% of Americans don't personally know anyone who's Muslim, or know very little or nothing about the faith. Many admit their views are based on media coverage. The same research...
Today, before we open the door to questions, is, and I need to walk the other side to Dr. Omar when he finishes. Dr. Omar, the Ackerman Center for All of the Studies, right here at UTD, and he's a distinguished chair of Arts, Humanities, and Technology. He's also Stan and Barbara Rabin Distinguished Professor in Holocaust Studies. Dr. Omar received a Master of Arts in History, Literature, and Philosophy from the University of Hamburg, and a PhD in History from Columbia University. And before arriving at UTD in 2006, Dr. Omar was a senior lecturer for 6 years at the University of Southampton. And with that, the floor is yours, Dr. Omar.
Thank you very much. I'll rather stand if you don't mind, and I'll come again and join you. Just as a way of framing our conversation in a slightly different way, I think it's always important to remember that my own field, Holocaust Studies, in lots of ways is a good guide for some of our reflections. So let me just walk us back just a moment in time into maybe the 1920s, when there was this Weimar Republic, and for all intents and purposes it was populated by Germans. The very fact that being Jewish became a distinguishing factor in lots of ways became really only relevant in its particular way after 1933, because up until that point Germany was a state with internal differences, Catholics, Protestants, as well as Jews, who have all identified themselves in one way or another as Germans, sometimes with local differences, Bavarians, Rhineland, and so on and so forth. What I'm trying to get at is that the very idea of minorities and majorities is part of a nationalist language. Neither minorities nor majorities exist innately and always there, but it takes a lot of effort actually to create it. The Nazi state even took quite a bit of time until it actually convinced everyone that Jews were a distinguished group that one could separate out from other Germans.
In the Ukraine conflict. Mujib Sahib, I'll let you go first, followed by the other panelists. And let us also keep the answers brief so I don't have to walk towards you. Thank you.
You see, when Russia attacked Ukraine, the only argument she had was, we are taking over our region that speaks the language that we speak, belongs to us, and they find the potholes where they could attack, and that's what they did. And the motivation behind that was, we have to, call spade a spade, because we need to keep the industry of weaponization in place, in check, make sure that they stay in business. So if the conflicts don't happen, these industries will not flourish. So if you draw a comparison, so long as Kashmir in Pakistan, in India, they keep fighting with each other, these industries will definitely flourish. The moment people start talking with each other, whether Indians or Pakistanis or Kashmiris, eventually they will come to resolve. Because we can change everything possibly we can, but one thing we cannot change is our neighbors. So we have to live with them, whether it is China, whether it is Pakistan, whether it is India. We have to live together. Unless and until we come to terms and make a peace among ourselves, we won't be able to survive. Same thing with Ukraine. Unless until these both parties come to some kind of come and talk, they would not be able to end the war, because I have never seen a war ended with war without having a general talk.
Between
The
Ukraine
comparison between Ukraine and Kashmir, and you could expand this to the comparison between different conflicts if you wanted.
Well, I think the biggest comparison would be the reaction of the West. We've seen a will from Western countries, the US included, in trying to help Ukraine, who is clearly seen by most people as the victim of this offensive, and contrasting that with Kashmir. It's been bubbling on for decades, and it was probably, I think, fairly, you could say it started, the situation was created by the West, in particular Britain at the time, and how it divided up that country. So the fact that it hasn't been resolved now, and despite UN resolutions, as you said, there's still been no change and no dealing with that issue, and no holding India in particular to account for some of the atrocities that are going on there. So I think, yeah, it's a question of the West and self-interest and where it sees its priorities.
Thank you. Dr. Raman?
To me, it's just, the beyond the comparison, the question is really that in many ways, we're still inheriting a certain world that was created way before us, and that is, coming back again, the kind of world of the multi-ethnic empires and the various interests that in many ways fell apart in 1914, and the kind of colonial outgrowths of that. And in many ways, those conflict lines are still very much with us. And the Ukrainian war is a perfect example of how one can kind of replay a certain type of conflict over and over again. But it does all point us into the unfortunate fact that that's not going to change. That in many ways, that world is very much with us. And if anything, I feel that the kind of structure and order that, for better or worse, once had existed, is really right now unraveling. And therefore, we will see more and more of these conflicts amplified by the various economics, by global warming, and the various conflicts that are going to ensue in its aftermath, mapped onto these various national conflicts and border, disputes. So in lots of ways, I think that world, unfortunately, has left a lasting legacy with us, and we're not anywhere closer to resolving it.
Great book in terms of othering the person. I highly recommend you check that book out, which is pertinent to the subject. Is that, when you suggest a minority, you are actually othering a group of people. And what can one do? What can society do? What can I do in order to minimize something like this? I would like to take that first.
Well, minorities generally, I think it's a term that is used to discriminate between the two communities living side by side or living together in one community. Unfortunately, those who are creating this as others are the ones who try to keep themselves superior to the one that is they consider that is not superior. So education is the tool that can probably undo this, and obviously the mindset has to be changed through education and through seminars and through voicing it out, not letting the idea creep in. I just want to say this. One fine morning, with my two other friends, we were having a coffee at the McDonald's shop. And it was like early in the morning, and we were wearing our traditional clothes, Middle Eastern clothes. And the guy sitting across the table, and we were the only people inside the McDonald's. That guy and us, three of us and him. And he walked up to us, daring us that I hate you, and you don't belong here. And I asked him, why would you say that? And his remarks was, I really don't have the specific answer to your question, but all I know is that if somebody were to shoot you or kill you, I would probably defend you because that's what my American value teaches me, but I don't think you belong here. And I said, well, let's talk about it. He said, no, I don't want to talk to you. So I walked up to his table and he stopped me right there. And he said, that's where your limit stops. I said, I respect that, but I do want to have a conversation because you're the one who's dating me. He said, no, I don't want to have a conversation. My other friends called me back. So we sat down, coffee ended, and we all left. I went outside in the parking lot and he came back again. And he was still sitting there. I said, I just need like a few minutes of your time and I'll pick up your ticket as well, but I want to talk to you. You just tell me why do you hate me? He said, well, don't you all see what's happening out in the media that you guys here to kill us all? So that narrative that was being built against us because I looked different, I wear the clothing that is different than him, so we started talking. So it was 6 o'clock in the morning, we ended up talking out in the parking lot until 9 in the morning, so 3 hours have gone by. So we became good friends. He follows me on my Twitter, on my Facebook, and when I ran for the city council, he voted for me also. So what I'm saying is, we need to go out and talk to the people and undo the narrative.
Thank you. I think conversation is a great thing. We're not absolutely ignoring you, Dr. right now.
Sure. So I think the term minority, it depends on how you take it. So I personally see it as a term of solidarity, similar to something like people of color. It's something that clarifies the situation that we're in, for example, in the United States. But I'm South Asian, I'm Muslim, I'm Shia, I'm a woman. So I feel as though I'm basically minoritized almost everywhere.